We have assisted me in the Opani department, old friends of the show, my titan of tumult. One of them right now, Bob Weiner, Democratic strategist, columnist, and former communications director for Clinton Drug Czar. General Barry McCaffrey is also former communications director for both Congressman Rangel as well as Conyers of New York and Michigan, respectively. Bob, good to have you back.
It's a pleasure, Alan, but gee, what you said, talking about costs of having Obamacare, what you don't say is the cost of not having it. And I was with the president on Friday at his news conference, was invited in, and watched as he said the Republicans are offering nothing, nada. All they want to do is complain and repeal, but offer nothing instead. And meanwhile, what's happening is kids are on the plan, $30 million provided. The insurance company costs are going down in New York and California, and the Republicans offer nothing but complaint to kowtow to the insurance industry. That's
once again, my good friend Bob Weiner taking a peripheral observation, inferring it as if it were a conclusive analysis, and then accordingly conveying it as such. It matters not how many good things are in it if they are exceeded by the bad. If they're exceeded by the bad.
That's true. I'd agree with that.
I don't know why it is you guys can't catch on to that, but even the Obama's own Medicare actuary is saying it's going to drive rates up across the board. So talk with them, not me. On board as well, David Almasi, Executive Director for the National Center for Public Policy Research, that august organization, of course, led by the always fearless Amy Ridenauer. David, good to have you back, buddy. How are you?
Hey, no problem. Hi, guys.
Listen, let me start with you on this one, David, because I think Obama, like too many politicians really from both sides of the aisle, forget that in any arrangement, be it a contract, pledge, or legislation, all parties must be tethered to a standard. Otherwise, there's no enforceable accountability. In other words, if you say to us that if we go along with your agenda, that A, B, and C will happen, and they don't, you don't get to then redefine those original standards simply because you were unable to meet them. Where am I so wrong about this, David?
You're not. It's like a little kid putting everything under his bed or underneath the couch or something like that. All the bad parts of this bill, all the things that they can't figure out because they didn't read the bill before they voted on it, they're just putting in the Federal Register here, putting a little blog post out on July 3rd, not letting the American people know that this act cannot stand on its own 2 feet and that they're going to have to push back all the bad stuff, all these things that they feel, that they know are going to screw the American public until after the next election. And that's not right. That's not the way adults act. And Bob can say whatever he wants about people being protected right now. It's not going to protect people in the future because it's going to fail.
Bob, I guess what I've always believed is just as the bad should not stain the good, nor can the good shield the bad. And there does seem to be, according to the American people, consistently on this, a bill that's not very satisfying. This thing is disliked by the majority of Americans, and contrary to Nancy Pelosi's view, holding that once we passed it, we could then learn what's inside it, and therefore we'd like it, the people have not grown to like it. They have been steadfastly resistant to it, and it isn't only because of its critics, it's because of the law's own problems associated with a completely one-sided vote when this whole thing was passed originally, Bob Weiner.
Well, I'd urge our listeners to go to my op-ed that I had in the Palm Beach Post last week. You know, they dislike socialism. They dislike big government, except that that's what Medicare is, and people love it. The specific provisions of the bill, the kids on the bill, the pre-existing conditions covered, no lifetime caps, the fact that the insurance companies are now held to account and only can have to provide 80% of benefits, in benefits. Those provisions, which is actually what the bill is.
If it's so wonderful, why is he delaying the cap on? Why is he delaying its cap on out-of-pocket insurance costs?
He had an answer. He said the attestation, the reporting by businesses, was a technical tweak which the businesses asked for, and he gave it to them. That has nothing to do with the bulk of the bill, of the coverage of the American people.
We have assisted me in the opining. First, Bob Weiner, Democratic strategist, columnist, and former communications director for Clinton Drug Czar General Barry McCaffrey, as well as David Almasi, executive director for the National Center for Public Policy Research. Bob, let me go with you. It does appear that the president is a little uncomfortable with his own record when the politics of present day don't seem to accommodate his assertions from yesterday. In other words, he seems very comfortable with detaching himself from those standard lines that expose all of his shortcomings, whether it's noncompliance, falsehood, or outright failure. I got to ask you, buddy, haven't we seen this trait from this guy throughout all his responses to failed standards, I mean, including those he had set for himself during the sales pitch phase. I'm, of course, talking about how the White House fields questions about everything from the stimulus bill to the Affordable Care Act to the economy to immigration reform and to gay rights. Again, the question to you, Bob, is this. Haven't we grown accustomed to his dodging accountability by way of redrawing standard lines already failed, Bob Weiner?
You know, as you were playing those clips and with the list you just mentioned, Alan, I couldn't help but think of the Iraq War will be over in 6 months and pay for itself. Or
exactly my point.
Or try this. Lower taxes will have no impact on the debt. So the Republican promises that were kept are mortal. At least Obama is trying to help the country.
Again, redefining the standard
No,
lines
you gave
already
a list.
failed.
I'm giving a list.
He said, if I don't do it in 3 years, we're looking at a one-term proposition.
Okay.
And then he
Right.
turns around and says, he never said that. Do you follow my drift? This is a guy who makes one assertion,
I don't disagree.
and then in the next breath, he says, I never made that assertion.
No,
to me, Bob, that's pretty. You want me to repeat that last clip?
I disagree with you on the cross clips. You're welcome to play them, but then read my lips, no new taxes. Everybody plays the cross clips. So you play the clips. You have a fair point in that. But in terms of trying, after you learn on the job what the reality is, tell me the Bush administration didn't learn that the Iraq War actually cost $4 trillion when they said it would be over after a few million in 6 months. Tell me they didn't learn that Reagan didn't learn lower taxes will have no impact on the debt, and Bush didn't learn that. And yet even ISIS said,
actually,
well,
no.
Mr.
Mr. Laffer, the economist, has shown that as long as you're not increasing your spending and you just cut tax rates,
right,
you will raise the revenue. And Obama himself,
but they do increase it. They increase
Obama himself said we could cut tax rates and use that as a way to acquire the $1.2 trillion without raising rates.
Without raising,
right. So you can do it if you're not concurrently raising the spending. To you, David Almasi, that was Reagan's problem in the second half of his term. When he lowered rates, he found the same thing that John F. Kennedy found. You lower tax rates, you increase tax revenue because you allow that many more people and businesses to hold on to that many more dollars so they can turn around and invest in that many more people or that many more products, thus elevating the amount of taxes being paid. If you allow for that many more people to become taxpayers, that is indeed how you raise revenue. Where am I off base, David Almasi?
Tripled the debt.
Remember here is that it's the liberal activists that will take whatever Obama gives them. It's Bush took a beating from his own people for what he did. The congressional Republicans who helped raise the debt, they took a beating from the conservative voters. It's the Obama voters that are awarding him when he says, "Oh, I should be out after this term if I don't fix things." They were the ones that when they heard him say, "Oh, I need a second term," they said, "Yeah, you betcha." And they'll say it again
and it doesn't
for a third
end.
term if he could have one. Right. They will overlook any misgivings that they have about him just to get him or someone like him back in office.
Well,
See, Bob, ever the centrist, I acknowledge where you point out the hypocrisy of the right. I just don't know why you can't execute that same capacity for self-appraisal.
Well, you're absolutely right if he didn't fix things, except for the fact that the financial crisis is solved, the car industry is saved, jobs are going up, housing's going up, state health premiums are going down. So
No. Only California and New York. No. The Medicare, even the Medicare actuary says premiums are going up. Bob, do you know more than the Medicare actuary?
Rates are going up far more slowly than the 100% every decade that they were going up previously. Far more slowly. That's the point.